web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
How can I pledge allegiance to a country built on lies? Or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes? My leaders are assassinated for speaking their mind. So justice never tilts my way. I thought that she was blind. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
I am Denise Tapina-Reed, co-host of At the Round Table with MAMLEO, a Massachusetts Association Minority Law Enforcement Officers Incorporated broadcast, and we greatly appreciate our sponsors. John B. Cruz Construction Company, 1 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Massachusetts, third generation, family owned.
What you say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, sponsored by The Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Again, give them a call there at The Money Store. It must sound like they have money there.
They must have money. They must.
It's in their name.
Yeah.
It's in their name. It's in their name. You can't be false advertising. Yes, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We are live here in the studio here. You know, we're running a little bit behind, but we're here. You know, it's, in live in person here this morning. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, in studio. With my brother, Pastor Hobbs, is in here with me. The Rhodes Scholar is on his way, and the doctor has the day off today. So, folks, we're just trying to get set up here. So, bear with us for a moment. But while we're doing that, we want to acknowledge our sponsor. For all your mortgage needs, good branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at The Money Store at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Also, you know, want to thank the MAMLEO memberships for their continued support to keep this broadcast on the air. And if you want to support the station here, give us a call at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. If you want to support the station, you know, they're doing a fantastic job here. It's not just At the Round Table with MAMLEO, but it's also other events that are going to be taking place as well. So make sure you tune in to, you know, to the other shows that take place here as well at Boston Praise Radio and TV. You know, we're going to be live here. You know, a lot going on here in the city. Actually, today at MAMLEO, there is going to be a little bit what we're going to be talking about here today as it relates to, you know, police reform. I know it's going to be a forum held at MAMLEO today at 1 o'clock from 1 to 4. I know the Boston Police Commissioner was invited, as well as some other folks here. And just folks, bear with me trying to find that flyer for you, and so we can give you all the information about what's going to be taking place today. Again, I apologize. We're a little out of order this morning, but we'll get there. You know, we got here, so we'll get there. So thank you for your patience there. Also, want to say a hearty good morning to Brother T. Michael Thomas. Good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. Good morning, Brother Dick. Good morning, Jamal. Good morning, Cliff. And Michelle, good morning. And because our deepest condolences to you and your family. You know, you're going through some really tough times. So I just want you to know you're not by yourself. We're there. Say good morning to Helen. And good morning to all of our listeners out there, folks who listen in. Brother Bridgeforth. Good morning, Brother Bridgeforth. Hope you're doing well down there in Indiana. You know, a little chilly here. It's probably a little cold. It's cold just about everywhere in the United States this weekend. So even down in places like Florida, if my in-laws are down there, they're talking about it's cold. It's 60 degrees. I'm like, 60 degrees is cold. That means your blood has thinned out. So, like I said, we're gonna mull through this today as well. Like I said, a lot going on here in the city, with the police department here in the city of Boston and the mayor. This is why when we talk about voting and the importance of voting and the importance of civic engagement, what we're seeing here in Boston is not much different than what people are seeing in Washington, D.C. as it relates to accountability, as it relates to people feeling like, you know what, the mayor was elected on a mandate and she doesn't have to answer to anyone. So again, today, we'll get into that a little bit, Saturday, January 17th, 2026, from 1 to 4 p.m. at MAMLEO headquarters. That's 61 Columbia Road. There's a forum taking place, the State of Police Reform in Boston. And that's going to be hosted by Jamal Crawford and some other community leaders. Like I said, I plan to attend. And if you want to, you should as well. There's a lot that needs to be addressed, and we're going to get into that a little bit more this morning, because we see that what's happening here, has been very little oversight in the Boston Police Department. And clearly, from all indications, all reporting, that when folks try to hold the department and its employees accountable, they're the ones who are usually on the receiving end of the punishment. Most recently, Superintendent Marcus Eddings filed a lawsuit against the Boston Police Department and Commissioner Cox as it relates to the whistleblower, and his position at the time was created by then Mayor Walsh to look into the behavior of police officers as it relates to the overtime and details, and people making sure that they're doing what they're getting paid to do. And he was demoted from that position, and according to what I've read, is that this was because Commissioner Cox has alleged that he really didn't want this oversight, and then you start to line that up with his demotion of Deputy Superintendent Eddie Crispin, who also has a lawsuit against the Boston Police Department, and his allegations, that because he was being asked to serve on the Post Commission, which has oversight over law enforcement throughout the Commonwealth. The commissioner first alluded to that there was a conflict of interest in that position, and then when that was proven to be not true, he alleged to have said that he could only have one master. I don't know how you feel, even as a black man, you can fix your mouth to say that to another black man, that he could have the only one master. Clearly not understanding the history of this country and the world, that you feel comfortable stating that. But then that follows up with another lawsuit from at the time a Lieutenant Goggin, who is now currently a captain in the Boston Police Department, who is alleging that he was trying to be pressured into changing his findings on matters in which he found officers responsible for their behavior, and the department felt like it was not going to show them in a favorable light, so they wanted those things changed. So, folks, a lot to get into. That's just a little overview of what we're going to be talking about this morning. But if you want to give us a call here at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. And I know Jamal's usually up and listening. If he wants to call in and give folks a little overview on what he hopes to take away from his forum this morning. And I guess timing is everything, because what he's bringing together, these folks he's bringing together, is to discuss what is going on in the Boston Police Department. And I think also, what's really troubling is the silence from City Hall. I mean, they haven't come out in a real glowing support of Commissioner Cox, and they haven't come out and said anything about these allegations, because they're very serious. Because you also have to put into this pile, and it's piling up, this whole thing with the Officer Devers and the Karen Reed trial, in which there was alleged that Commissioner Cox had a conversation with Officer Devers prior to her testimony. He said it didn't take place, and then there was information that was put out later that clearly you can show on his calendar that they had a meeting, what was scheduled a meeting, that the meeting was set up prior to her testifying in court in Dedham. And when Commissioner Cox was confronted with it, he didn't know anything about it. But I think it really, if you look at all of these on their face, the one thing that is clear, that Commissioner Cox has a credibility issue, and that it's just, how can he continue to operate and stay in that capacity? Because I have to be honest, if I was, I'm retired from the police department, but if I was currently there and someone made an allegation that I was untruthful or whatever, my question would be, fine, the same person that investigated whether Police Commissioner Cox was untruthful and his behavior was appropriate, that's the person I want to assign to my case. And the answer would be, there's no one. So again, how do you now continue to discipline, and what's the oversight there? Because we're sure not getting it from OPAT, which is the Office of Police Accountable and Transparency, which is connected with City Hall. And even in that, there was accusations that anytime they found police officers accountable for misbehavior, that Commissioner Cox overruled them. And I think only one case where there was any discipline even dished out to individuals. So where there's smoke, there's fire, folks, is what we're trying to get to here. And that all these folks can't be making this up. This is not one person. This is not just Superintendent Eddings. This is not just Superintendent Crispin. This is not just the captain. This is not just the lawyers for Karen Reed. This seems to be rampant. And because the commissioner is a civilian, the police officer standards and training, which I served as a commissioner, has no oversight per se, because he is a civilian. He's not sworn to look into it. But the mayor's office, he works for the mayor. And like I said, I don't know how you continue to operate in this manner with no credibility. So we're going to grab this call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, brothers. Jamal, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jamal. Help me out here with, I know first of all, we'll get into what's going to be taking place today and what you expect to get out of the forum that is going to be held at MAMLEO headquarters today from 1 to 4.
Not for nothing, too. I was tuned in right as it came on. I don't know, did y'all pray?
No, we did. What happened was we run a little late this morning, so we're a little out of order with things. We had to jump right on the air, so I appreciate you picking up on that.
Yeah, because I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
People get upset.
They do. No, absolutely. We, the time got away from us a little this morning, so you probably heard the intro, the recording, but we are live this morning.
Yep.
See, even Brother Rhodes is just coming in,
Right.
We have to get them alarm clocks for Christmas again.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, brother.
Good morning. So, basically this forum is, for those who have been around and the ones, that I've done in the past, I try to do a very, kind of open, a real discussion. Mm-hmm. But a discussion where, people on the panel, people in the audience are bona fide, experts or elected officials or whatever capacity they serve, with a healthy mix of community members. Mm-hmm. So that way, we discuss the issue, and while, we really can't get to anything without discussing the problems, what we're really trying to do is figure out solutions.
Yeah.
So, for instance, right now, OPAT is clearly not living up to its maximum potential and what it was intended to do. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure out the impediments to that, which many of them we already know, but really how to be able to eliminate those impediments.
Yeah.
So right now, everyone on the flyer is confirmed with the exception of the commissioner. So this is also too new to me, as you know, because we met many years ago, at MAMLEO doing, a controversial issue at the time with the Safe Homes Initiative.
Right.
and police brass were there, the people in command, community members, ACLU, and the whole lot. This is a little bit different because I've never had the participation of anybody from the BPPA, Boston Police Patrolmen's Association, and shout out to Larry Calderon for having the courage to to come and represent his own position and the BPA's position on the issue. And it's unfortunate that I have heard nothing from the commissioner, who you've heard me say on many occasions, I like. But right now, I'm disappointed.
Well, let me just jump in on a few things. I think sometimes, Jamal, people try to equate you holding people accountable, and I'm talking about you in general. I'm talking about those of us who do, as not liking someone, right? And we hold ourselves accountable, right? And so that's the part that there's such a disconnect. Oh, it must be personal. We're just pointing out what is wrong here, what is not working, right? And I mean, your timing is perfect here. And honestly, because here you're going to have, and I don't know if you picked up on this, 2 current commissioners from the Post are going to be on your panel. Larry Calderon, even though he's president of the BPA, he also has a seat on the Post Commission, as well as Eddie Crispin, who was a former deputy superintendent, is a current commissioner in the seat that MAMLEO was able, as my time as president, was able to get that enshrined in the law, that we have a permanent seat, which is something we have never had, a seat at the table. Now we have a permanent seat at the table. But I want to read Jamal a little bit, and I want to get your reaction as well as our listening audience. It says, in a suit, deputy superintendent charges he was demoted after he uncovered fraud by officers on paid details. Boston Police Deputy Superintendent Marcus Eddings today sued his boss, Police Commissioner Michael Cox, charging Cox demoted him when Cox demanded he bury proof of fraud among numerous officers on paid details, and he refused. In his suit filed in Suffolk Superior Court, Eddings charges Cox demoted him from superintendent, a job in which he says he was tasked specifically with ferreting out fraud, to block him from continuing investigations and try to keep the department from suffering another black eye like the one BPD got from the overtime fraud at its Hyde Park evidence warehouse. Eddings alleged he found specific evidence of major detailed wrongdoing by 43 officers involved in more than 693 instances, and enough evidence against 45 of those officers to warrant starting internal affairs investigation. But that when he went to Cox and another top department official with details, Eddings, according to the suits, Cox demoted him. Eddings, who first joined the BPD as a patrol officer, held the ranks of officer, sergeant, detective, worked in the gang unit, internal affairs, and was superintendent over paid details in the courts. So, and it goes on, it goes to what you're trying to put together today, as you've been working at for quite some time, because one of the other statements in here that jumps out, and I saw a post on your Facebook page when it says here, at this time, another BPD official told Eddings that the department could not realistically fire 15 to 25 officers. Now, I like the analogy you said, if you had 15 to 25 officers who robbed the bank or who were in some child porn, it would be easy enough if they were committing an infraction. What does the infraction have to be? I mean, if it's misbehavior that warrants termination, what are we keeping them for? To continue in that line of work, of misbehavior?
And I guess it's going to spread the cancer. It gives the example that this, behavior is acceptable,
right,
and they can get away with it. Mm-hmm. One of the things I noticed that you said, again, you're not taking this personal, and I commend you for saying that and mentioning that, and the fact that a lot of the discipline I noticed that he's administered seems to be personal. And the fact that the disparity in regards to the discipline that is offered for certain officers of color seems to exceed, again, the people that he's protecting on the other side, so.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you highlighting that, because behind this microphone, whoever the commissioner was, we've held them accountable, black or white. Mm-hmm. And it would be hypocrisy on our part to say, well, we have a black police commissioner.
Let it
so
go.
We know what's going on. And we're not. No, that doesn't help the situation.
No, you're absolutely right.
it's just like Jamal.
Well, let me interject this, and this is what I mean when I say I like. Because I like him as a person, as a man, and all these type of things. Yes, it's not personal and all this, but there's also too a deeper level of disappointment when you were really, and shame on me, but I was expecting something. Okay, so because of, as I've spoke before, that he is, an intellectual man. So I thought that was going to translate into benefits for our community. Because of his own experience, being a black man who, was beaten up by his own colleagues in the famous case.
I was going to bring that up.
That he would also have a sensitivity
yes.
to, to police brutality and misconduct.
Yes.
Particularly not only what happened to him, with the initial beating, but in the aftermath.
The cover-up. Yes.
And everything.
Right.
So, I had really hoped, and this is what I thought at the time. Okay, I was really hopeful. So to me, this is a worse letdown than, let's say, Ed Davis. I didn't expect anything. So when we got how does the Annie record go? Instead of kisses, we got kissed.
Yeah.
This is what we expected. But with Michael Cox, at least for me, I had high hopes, and it seems that they are now being dashed on the rocks.
No, that's the exact thing that he pointed out. The fact that with that background, with that personal story, that being almost killed by his fellow police officers, the cover up, I figured he would have more of the fortitude to stand up for the little guy.
I think because I had a little prior knowledge, I grew up on the same street with current Commissioner Cox. I knew the family well. So I did not have those same expectations based on what I knew, and none of this is coming as a shock to me, because even when that travesty happened with him and all that was done to make it seem like he was at fault, he wanted to go along to get along. He did not want to pursue this. What he initially all wanted was an apology for this behavior. That doesn't correct the behavior by just wanting people to say, I'm sorry. And I think, people were, I know Jamal and others spent a lot of money putting together OPAT, right? The Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. And their networking was supposed to root out these type of things when they were aware of them or when they were brought to their attention. And that should have also been a collaboration with Superintendent Eddings, because his job was to do the same thing somewhat at the police level, at the police department, with something that was a huge problem and continues to be a problem with officers on details and not doing them and not being held accountable, because he was moved out of that position and no one was put back into that position to fill it, to make sure that accountability took place. So we're back to business as usual.
So he's rewarding bad behavior. Basically, he's basically taking away the hand that can slap him and saying, "Go ahead, continue doing what you're doing. We don't care."
That's pretty much that's
what I would gather from it.
Gather from it is that where's the accountability and all the work and time that these folks put in to put together this OPAT? Where is the accountability from the police department? And to have people saying we can't get rid of people.
No, that is funny. The private sector can get rid of people all the time. They lay people off, they fire people, furlough. They have so many words when they say we can get administrative leave or sabbatical. They have many words for it.
There were two things that came out in this too, and one was that the personnel factor. We know that the BPD has doesn't have as many people as it may need or as it once had, or whatever the correct term is. So they have a personnel shortage. And then the other thing that was mentioned was legacy.
Yeah,
I don't want this to tarnish my legacy. And I think both of those things are
problematic.
Disturbing. So first of all, as the point that I made on Facebook, and I didn't create this out of my brain, talking about UFOs and Bigfoot. This is the stuff of headlines.
Right.
So if there was another one of these big sexual busts, and you find that there's 15 officers who was engaged in this type of activity, you tell me you can't fire them because, you got shortages?
Well, just imagine, Jamal, if we policed in that way, right, and said we saw people committing homicides, but
well, we ain't got enough room in jail to put them in, so we'll let them go right now. Yeah.
Or drugs or whatnot. And I mean, this is where it gets into corruption because, back in my day, there were certain drug dealers who would get a slap on the wrist and a pat on the butt and, get left off, maybe minus their drugs.
Yeah.
But they would get bigger breaks.
Right. But Jamal, wait, we've got some breaking news in. The BPD is calling in. They've got an answer to it.
Bring me no bad news, 'cause I wake up already negative and I'm fired up my views. So don't nobody bring me no bad news. Now, if we're gonna be buddies, you better bone up on the rules, 'cause don't nobody bring me no bad news. You can't be my best of friends as opposed to paying dues, but don't nobody bring me no bad news.
There we go. The BPD has responded. Don't bring them no bad news.
Hey, and listen, we might as well cue up that Michael Jackson. You can't win.
right. So we have a little humor with this, but this is really serious. When people have been tasked with these positions, like the Superintendent Eddings and Superintendent Crispin, who was up in Internal Affairs,
and they get undercut, and belittled, demoted.
It's like the old dragnet. Just the facts.
Yeah.
Just the facts, right? And they're holding people accountable. One thing I know about both of them is they're conscientious, honorable people.
Yeah.
So and that's what scared people, is because they knew that if they found out that you're misbehaving, the first thing they would normally do is counsel you and say, look,
this is not right. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You've been, this is what we've observed.
Take the overtime, you take the detail, you perform it.
Yes.
Right?
And not for nothing, like a guy like Eddings, how long was he there?
He was...
No, just on the force in general.
I'm going to say close to 30 years.
Okay. So 30 years, you rise to these ranks, and then you get in trouble for trying to do the right thing.
Right.
What does that say to the guy who just got out the academy?
Exactly.
Right. This is where...
Well, I don't know. Let's refer back to the song that the theme song of the show is. America all a lie?
Is this America all a lie?
Right.
Right.
It literally is.
Right.
It's like, okay, you say one thing, but you're completely an about face of what you're saying.
Well, but see, again, I think if it hadn't been for George Floyd, we probably would not have the
transparency,
right?
the accountability.
So we still just have it at the city level, which it's not been effective.
And the funny thing is, do you understand that Massachusetts is the model that people are looking at?
Right. Well, they need to look in another state. You had this one you want to say, Pastor Howard?
Yeah, no, just and to further convolute and compound and amplify the problem, right? We're talking about the Boston Police, right?
Yes.
And its relationship, I would submit, even to the Oversight Committee, the post that you're on, and its intersectionality with correctional officers and literally loss of life at the hands of correctional officers within the Suffolk County, right? And how does that play into accountability with, OPAC? Because let me tell you why. Because right now, with what's going on in Mass and Cass, in many instances, people are being forced, right, into incarceration / treatment. And they have trauma and mental illness like Shakobi Kinney, who's literally, I believe, and many other folks have witnessed, even correctional officers on the inside, that this young man was actually killed under the guise of being in their custody and in their care, right? And so if the same person who incarcerated this person, and now are you going to be, the attorney, the district attorney, right? Are they going to be fair and not be biased and really being able to look at the correctional officers and this trend of violence,
Yeah.
sexual assault that's happening within the institution. They're pushing it for the AG to be able to investigate this so it can be independent, and are finding that even with that, there's a challenge because of political kinds of things, that if the community does, and the governor doesn't actually say that this needs to go to the AG, then it continues to not really authentically be investigated. And the officers are continuing to come to work and threatening people who are saying you did this.
Right. So I think the biggest piece I extract from that, which there's quite a lot in what you just said, was the fact that you just said that they're down there, and this is the BPD, because they set up a new unit to go down there, and the offer was either you get treatment or you go to jail, right? So they're saying that there's going to be accountability, and the same people who are dishing this out have no accountability.
That's it,
right? That if they go on and they have misconduct or misbehavior, and someone like Superintendent Eddings or Superintendent Crispin or Captain Goggin, right? If these people are holding them accountable, they're the ones who are held accountable. They're the ones who have to file lawsuits and be ostracized, right? But BPD can go down and say to the person who has an addiction problem, if you don't straighten up and fly right, we're putting the handcuffs on you. If you don't go and get treatment, you're going to jail. Because I've been hearing that quite a bit. So, but then it goes to, like, it's really disappointing. Jamal is having a forum. The commission was invited. Well, he showed. Jamal, did he ask? Did they say, well, the commissioner can't come, but we're going to send a representative?
I got nothing. The only communication I've been able to have is with the media office, who assured me, they passed it along on both occasions. I had conversations with them. I also made it understood that they themselves were, open to come. Any of the community relations offices were open to come. Any BPD brass that wanted to come. And as you know, like the meetings that have been had in the past, some people may come and just choose to observe, not even say anything. Some others may want to come and actually make a statement. It's whatever. It's not an ambush. It's not a gotcha. It is what it says. It's a community town hall forum discussion. We're trying to get to the bottom of it and not do like, this is not a tar and a feather or, pitchforks and torches type of thing. But this is an issue that clearly keeps coming up in the media. People are concerned. Myself and others were part of this police reform and whatnot. And people want to know, what's the progress on my hamburger? You know what I mean?
But I think this goes back to what Rhodes was just saying a second ago, and as well as you alluded to, Jamal. I think people had this high expectation that Cox would be the right person to come in and root this out based on what he went through. I mean, they had to have other police officers at his home when he was living up in Grove Hall because there were other officers threatening him for coming out and telling the truth about what happened to him that night. So you would think he would be, of all people, supportive of officers who are willing to come forward with misconduct, because people think there's this blue wall. I know myself personally, when I was standing up as president of MAMLEO for our members, and I told every single person, understand this clearly. I am not here to excuse your behavior if your behavior was inappropriate. But if the price to pay for that would be 2 days, we shouldn't be getting 25 days for the same infraction. This with the disparity. But also, I think the mindset of this current commissioner, for folks who aren't clear about, and I have no proof of this, so I don't want this to seem like an allegation, but it was very troubling to me shortly after he was installed as the commissioner that every 4-star folks, there were 3-star, 4 stars, and one person had 5 stars. That's the number 2 person, the highest ranking sworn member of the Boston Police Department. Prior to Commissioner Cox's arrival, every 4-star superintendent, that's the highest other than that 1-star, was a person of color, in charge of patrol, in charge of detectives, in charge of every bureau in the Boston Police Department. Commissioner Cox came to MAMLEO's Christmas party as if he was Mr. Scrooge. And in his statement, he said to us in the room, well, I noticed that, but don't get used to it.
No, I remember you quoting that a few times.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having people who are not black in charge of those bureaus. But when you say that and then you strip us of those power, because the patrol detectives and the chiefs are the three, other than the commissioner, most powerful bureaus in the police department.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the rest of them are kind of just symbolic,
Yeah.
right? Those are now controlled by white males, right? So you're taking away power, you're taking away oversight, and you're bringing, actually, in some ways, he's ushered back in the Davis administration.
No, absolutely.
And Ed Davis was someone that not only MAMLEO, but for the first time I can recall, Jamal, the BPPA, as well as the NAACP, we took a vote of no confidence against. His chief of staff was Ed Davis's legal person.
Yeah.
Who
And
was...
wait a second. Where did they get him from, and what was going on before he became the Boston Police superintendent, the commissioner?
Who, Cox?
No.
Oh, Ed Davis? He was out in Lowell.
And
Wasn't
wasn't
he? Absolutely.
Exactly. Okay.
Absolutely.
And they, again, that's not being held accountable. So again,
But
police
if you-
department just moves
Right.
on.
But if you go back and you look at Commissioner Cox, when he left Boston, he was appointed as the chief of police in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He wasn't there 30 days before there were allegations of this same behavior, because he didn't want things to people to see or perceive that there was a problem in this department. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
you don't get it fixed if you ignore it.
No, you don't. Again, I don't know how that works, but I guess you need to go. Some people need to have the emergency room visit. They can't just deal with the symptom right away. They need to have something blow up in their face for them to be able to say, "Oh, we're going to do something about it." But
Jamal, did you invite anyone from OPAT for the forum today? Oh no.
Oh yeah. Avandro's
Is he on the panel? Oh yeah, okay.
As well as the director of the Civilian Review Board. Is it Sam Houston? And as well as the director of the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel, Anthony Fugate.
Okay.
So Sam Harold is the Civilian Review Board chair, pardon me. Okay. And Anthony Fugate, chair of the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel. So those are the three basically that comprise the OPAT mechanism.
Right.
To your point, Eddie Crispin, Post Commissioner, Larry Calderon, a BPPA, and who I had forgot was actually a Post Commissioner as well. And to your point about Ed Davis too, with all the commissioners that I've dealt with in my life, and I did not really have great relationships with all of them. All of them responded though to me.
Yeah.
Even if it was to say, screw you. Right. There would be a response. No, we're not coming. We're not participating in that. Whatever. But this is just a no response. And I gotta say, since him being in there, the only time that I, have had an opportunity to speak to him has been, at some of the community coffee hours when, like, the mayor does the coffee hours in the park type of thing, and I would bump into him or something like that, brief, little, mini banter, but never any kind of substantive meeting. And I've told him several times that I wanted to speak to him about police reform and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's
to your point, Jamal. Even when I was active duty and I was, I would run into him just like you in those settings, right? Pretty much, right? Not any scheduled meetings. He'd always say to me, "Well, we need to sit down and talk." To his credit, the former acting commissioner Greg Long reached out to me at my time, as well as Larry Calderon, and said, "Look, if it's not a conflict or any issues, would it be okay for you to come up and explain to my command staff how this new post commission operates, because we're unfamiliar with this. Is all new to us, right?" And that makes sense, and it was welcoming. And we said, no, there's no conflict, because anything that's personal, we're not going to discuss any cases or anything. But how procedurally wise, this makes sense.
Absolutely.
Cox kept saying that, but my phone never rang. That's why I'm not surprised that Jamal didn't get any calls. And then, you want this perception that you came up, because this is just my opinion. I think he wanted this perception that he came in and cleaned up things because things are not being reported, right? Instead of actually cleaning them up, like what Superintendent Eddings was tasked to do, that was formed and created under the Walsh administration, because we had a problem. We still have a problem.
Yeah, no.
Well, the things I've seen when I see him making some public statements and some of the advertisements that come out of BPD, it's about these neighborhood and these community partnerships. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver?
You must live outside the city.
You know what I mean? And for a person who's really trying to engage, with some substantive stuff and not say, screw the police or, pig or, hit them with a bunch of donut jokes or something like that.
Yeah.
A person who is not trying to, I will protest if necessary, but you get my point.
Right.
I'm trying to have actual reasonable and dialogue that we can build on. Because as a person that was involved in both Boston police reform as well as the establishment of post in Massachusetts, originally police decertification, I have a big stake in this.
But Jamal,
and so
that sounds, what you're talking about is one, I believe, is what our relationship, like you said, when we first kind of met, was at not somewhat, but a controversy hearing about people, the police wanting to come in and get permission from parents to search their kids' rooms. And, they didn't want us to allow you to have that forum at MAMLEO at the time. Ironically, right? MAMLEO is a place, because that's the partnership. It's not about trying to control what people say. In the irony is that this is what they push out there at the top, but they don't practice what they preach. So the officers should build those type of relationships with the community, with people like, just imagine, Jamal, if I was still active and you called down to headquarters and said, I have an issue with the school, that's where I was working at, and I tried to reach Detective Ellison and he just ignored me. They would call me up and reel me and say, you need to get in touch with Mr. Crawford and make sure you have a sit down with him and find out and address his concerns. So if we're not doing that at the top, and you're saying that you've reached out numerous times and all you get is, we get the message, we conveyed it, but no one gets back to you with a yay or a nay, and they don't understand why, like, I haven't seen a lot of support from him. And it was, like I said, Jamal, what's not saying shocking, but the silence from City Hall on all of these, like I said, because they always say where there's smoke, there's fire. This isn't an isolated case. They try to make it like when it was Superintendent Crispin, when it was the captain, when it was the Karen Reed matter, and there's a long list of things that the other officer that was just decertified, Augustine, right, Jamal? So you have to say, wait a minute, there's something not working in this place.
And the other guy, even what's the other guy?
Abishano. Yeah, Abishano. Yeah, right. And they've already been a summary judgment in his favor. It's just a matter of how much of the taxpayers' funding is going to pay this former officer, because the courts, in as well as the investigation, said, look, it wouldn't have been something that I would have gone down to DC during that, but there was no violation of policy. Didn't enter the building. The findings did not support what the City Hall and others. Well, we just got the perception. It's not, people should not be terminated over perception, right? Because if that was the case, Jamal, you and I have complained many times when Jimmy Connell wasn't writing the Pax Centurion, which was the Patrolmen's Association's newsletter. And if anyone should have been fired over their comments and their characterization of people, commissioners, community folks, would have been Jimmy Carnell. But they always told me he was protected under his First Amendment, free speech. And I don't agree with Abishano's way.
I'm going down, but my thing is like, okay, imagine that you guys, who you are, and you're telling me about the accountability. So how's the average citizen that has no connection, knows nobody, how they're supposed to feel? Like if they call the Boston Police Department, like are their calls actually going to be answered?
Well, not just answered, but to Jamal's point, right? How about we get in a room and figure out how we can better serve the citizens, right? And Jamal was part of the OPAC.
Oh my! Isn't that a crazy thing? How we can actually get better? Why would that? What's wrong with the with the organization trying to get better?
I don't know. So Jamal, are you hearing anything out there in the community? I mean, as far as people's confidence in the leadership here, because it doesn't seem to be taking.
Some people are like, if you have a complaint, you should just complain to internal affairs. Just like they're like, forget about OPAC.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, of course, to me at least, neither of them has been effective.
Mm-hmm.
Internal affairs to me has not been really effective. Me going back to like
there's no independence, 70s. Jamal. The commissioner can overrule anything any findings that they come up with.
Right, and so all I'm saying is that OPAC being relatively new, here we have an opportunity to strengthen what is there, and that was never the intent. For the commissioner to have just basically ultimate
veto power.
Yeah.
Right. It was intended to be a little bit more collaborative than that. So now I think a law or a proposal. Now we need to amend it to strengthen where we've seen some of these loopholes.
Right. Well, I mean, I think, like I said, Jamal, there's been so much evidence to support what you're saying as well others, and why there was a need for a position that was created and Superintendent Crispin was put into, was the recent report that came out that showed that Boston was the outlier in the lack of cases being investigated and reported. They had like 55. The next closest was a small town called Cambridge that had 5, and the state police, which is another larger entity, only had 2.
Right.
So I don't understand. That clearly shows that these things are not being looked into, and there's such a backlog of these cases. They're not being reported because by law now, any of these misconduct allegations of misconduct must be reported to the Post within 48 hours. BPD is still operating as if somehow they don't have to conform with the law. It's almost like the Trump syndrome, right? We can do whatever we want to do, and there's no accountability, because even some of the folks, and I forget their official title, Jamal, you probably know, there's the director, which is Evandro Cavallo, and then there are folks, is that the civilian review folks, who were complaining as well, because they had several instances in which they found that officers' behavior was not appropriate, and they sent the recommendations for discipline, and they were ignored as well. So it's not just people on the inside like Crispins and Eddings and Goggin, the captain. It's folks who are tasked with the independence being shut out as well, and you not even having an opportunity to have a conversation with.
Yeah, so that's one of the problems. BPD, just general rank and file officers, I think, are probably being advised, but I have no evidence of that. But based on the fact that they feel as though there is no real
accountability,
because this body, they believe, does not take any precedence over their own union contracts and whatnot. So they're just basically avoiding the process.
Right.
Now, traditionally, cops have avoided any process of accountability,
yes.
Whether that's, even if it's internal affairs or whatnot. So some of this, I think, is kind of regular. But also, too, I think the climate that we're in exacerbates the situation. Nobody wants, I don't want to say nobody, many people do not want to submit the self-check and all of this, so we get it. But what we need to do, I believe, is tighten that up so that if you are called before the body that is supposed to be, doing this accountability and transparency check, and if you're called before that body and you choose to not show up, there ought to be some sort of sanction. Now,
good. Okay.
Whether that means you get fired, I mean, I wouldn't say fired, right? But there needs to be some sort of disciplinary or something that
training,
denotes.
counseling, right? But because Jamal, look at these numbers now. BPD has roughly, when I left, I'm going to say there's maybe about 1,200. So 690. Eddings alleges he found specific evidence of major detail wrongdoing by 43 officers involved in more than 693 instances, and enough evidence against 45 officers to warrant starting internal affairs investigations. Those numbers are staggering, right? If anyone else had a business with that type of behavior that was inappropriate and someone came to them under the whistleblower, and instead of you dealing with the problem, you deal with the person who brought it to you?
Right.
Well, it's like saying, okay, blaming the rape victim for, saying rape. That's literally what they're doing.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, Jamal, Eddie Crispin also was part of the OPAT conversations, right? Was he part of that?
He was a member on the Boston Police Reform Task Force, which created not just OPAT, but we had, I think it ultimately was like 37 different points of police reform. But OPAT is the most sexy one, so it gets all the attention and all this.
Right.
But there were many points to the police reform, and a lot of it has been complied with.
Right.
Because it was not the painful stuff.
So let me just unpack this for our listening audience as well, Jamal. So Eddie Crispin, right, and he also served as a deputy superintendent. At some point in that time, he served as the assistant chief of internal affairs, right? And also
a lawyer.
He's an attorney, right? So I say this because he would be, in my opinion, the appropriate person to be at post, right? With his understanding of how internal affairs works, his understanding of how OPAT and these reforms, all of this worked. And maybe that was his danger, because he knew how things operated, and they didn't want him in a position where he could actually look at things independently. Because even as a deputy superintendent up in internal affairs, the commissioner still had the final say regardless of what Deputy Crispin's findings or the investigators and bringing them to him and him looking over them and the superintendent. The commissioner could veto, and until you, the agency that he doesn't have that veto power over is the post, and that's the one he shuns. He doesn't like. In my opinion, he doesn't feel like oversight is something that he should be subjected to.
And to that degree, I got to say also too, this has been a long-standing thing with the BPD, because too much of this, first in the nation, I don't know. BPD has probably more of an ego than even New York, when it comes to police department.
Right.
And so this very kind of can do no wrong thing has, happened for multiple decades. And it got worse like after the marathon, because then it's like every Boston police person is a hero, and if scandal never stuck before, boy, it really doesn't stick now. Despite the stuff like the Patrick Rose or the this or the that, it doesn't stick.
Well, I think they think people have short-term memories, which they do. People have a lot going on in their lives, right? But again, I think it really the bigger problem is, where is the next Marcus Eddings, Eddie Crispin, Captain Gargan, and those who were willing to come? And there are a few like myself who pointed out the deficiencies in our own police department. I think some people think that all of us are in cahoots with this, right? I say all this because who would want to say, wait a minute, these are people who are part of the leadership in the police department, actually, and the captain as well, because the captain is part of the leadership. And these people, for telling the truth, look what happened to them. Why would that patrolman or that detective or even a sergeant or whatever see some misbehavior and get involved instead of looking the other way. Do the right thing, because one, it's most likely not going to be investigated, and then two, they're going to turn it on you. Somehow you're the problem for reporting it.
Yeah, these kids are signing up for the fire exam right now.
And people are leaving BPD like in droves. Jamal, we got to take a break, but we're going to continue this on the other side. I don't know if you want to hold on or you want to call back, because we're going to